Hello and welcome back to Music Nuggets. Today's nugget is all about guitar synthesis and a guitar synth that I've built using the Axoloti DSP board. So you can find these at axoloti.com. They are €65. It just comes as a circuit board. It doesn't come with a case like this. And it's basically a little DSP sketching environment that you can build anything that you like within reason or within your understanding of how the software works. Once you have made something in the software that you're happy with and you've designated a bunch of controls on a controller like this one here, you can upload it to the box and you don't need the computer again. You can completely just use it as a hardware device, which is awesome. It means you've got a really portable and powerful thing that does exactly what you want it to do. So this one is all about guitar synthesis. I've built a little circuit that's basically tracking the pitch of my guitar. This is the clean signal. I'm just going into some software amps just now, so it will kind of overdrive a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't affect the sound of the synth too much, but let's just dive into what I've built here. So this button here turns it on, going from the clean sound to so what's happening is there is a little object inside the patch that it tracks the pitch of mono notes. If you play chords, it'll confuse it, or it'll snap to like the strongest note, which is probably the lowest note in terms of like a fundamental note. But it's really great for, let's say, riffs and stuff like that. And you can hear that it actually tracks really quickly and responsively. I've got it set up, I did a lot of tweaking with the velocity so that you can play really quietly, all the way up to really loudly. So it's actually really responsive and really quick. It glitches here and there because I still haven't quite got the filtering right for the pitch tracking, but that's on me, it's not really on the system. It's definitely capable of it. So I'll take you through some of the things that I've made this thing do, and I think it's absolutely incredible for €65. What's actually happening, if I strip this back, I've got quite a few effects and detune effects and stuff like that on it just now. So I'll take all of that off and I'll take the filter off so that you can just hear the oscillators on their own to begin with. What I've got is I've got a bank of 4 oscillators on these 4 sliders. So that means that I can have those oscillators in different octaves, and if I wanted, I could have them in different pitches entirely. I could have them playing chords and stuff like that, but I've just made them snap to octaves because I think that's more useful for all the riff stuff that I want to do. So this is it without the detune effect on. So that's 4 oscillators, 4 sawtooth oscillators at exactly the same pitch. Now if I move one of them up, you'll hear the difference. So that's one of them being put up an octave. And then I could move that up an octave again. And they can all be set to different octaves. So one of them could be a real sort of sub-octave and another one in between. So I've now got 4 oscillators in 4 different octaves. But it's quite kind of static sounding even when you've got like the 4 different octaves in there. Where it really gets interesting is I've built a control that on one knob basically it will detune all of the oscillators very slightly from each other to varying degrees. So if I turn that on, This is all of them in tune with each other. And if I just nudge that slightly, you'll hear it change. So that's now 4 oscillators really slightly out of tune with each other. Which starts to get much bigger sounding, and if I detune it even more, you notice it sounds massive. It sounds like a lot of oscillators. On top of that, what we can have is a low pass filter with resonance. So if I turn the resonance up, now we're getting into fun synth territory. The resonance can get really ridiculous. And the filter can follow the envelope of the guitar. So I've got 2 different types of envelope. I've got one that's just an ADSR, or ADS really, because I don't want release on guitar notes. I don't want to take my finger off and have like erroneous notes like just continue. So let's say I want it to swell in over time, then I can have that, because I've got a tack here that can be made really long. Or if I wanted to make it really short or decay over time, then I can do that too by setting the sustain really low and the decay longer. So and that's always going to follow exactly the same envelope, because it's just a trigger that's listening for when I hit the note. If that's good for like if you want really short, like bubbly kind of sounds, like so like for that kind of effect. But I can flip that with just envelope follow and response. So that's actually following the volume of the note that I pick. So like kind of like an auto wah, and that can be tweaked to suit. So you can have like less of the envelope so that it takes a bit harder of a pick to open up. So if I pick really quietly, it won't open. So that's really responsive. It feels really good. So that's super neat. Different uses for different applications, like depending on how tight you want that filter and sound to be. On top of that, those 4 oscillators, they can move between, there's like feedback that turns a sine wave into a saw wave. So that's that kind of buzzy kind of tone that you're hearing. Open that filter up. But if I send the feedback the other way, it gives you more of a square wave kind of sound. More kind of hollow, a bit more kind of typically synthy sounding, I guess. That can be good for chiptune kind of sounds, but that got me thinking. As soon as I started playing about with the square wave, I wanted to play with the pulse width of the square wave. So I've actually got the 4 octaves doubled, so those 4 oscillators. I've got a separate volume for 4 pulse width oscillators, so if I turn that up, they should sound relatively similar, like this square wave, which is the one that's got the feedback oscillator. And if I turn the pulse width oscillators up, they should sound quite similar. Slightly different quality, but why I wanted to have those separately was that on this one I can play with the pulse width of that wave. So like, now you can hear that's more of a kind of chiptune-y, especially if the pulse width moves around. So I've got an LFO that can modulate that pulse width. So that gives you those sounds where the wave almost kind of disappears because the pulse width is getting so narrow. Which is super cool. I could set that so that the sweep is really long too, so like, and with that chiptune stuff, it got me thinking, how can I make it more chiptuney if I want really chiptuney guitar sounds? So what I've got here on these 4 knobs is a sort of 4-note sequencer, which can be plus or minus an octave or anything in between. So each of these knobs can be plus or minus an octave. So if I turn that sequencer on and slow the speed of the sequencer down, you'll hear it going between 1 octave and another octave up. But that could just as easily be, so I've got normal octave, octave up, normal octave, that could just as easily be octave down. So now you've got this 4 octave. 3 octave rather, sequencer. But typically the chiptune thing, it just jumps between octaves. So if I put that back to jumping between normal and an octave up and turn the speed up, it should start to get pretty chiptuney. Which is a hell of a lot of fun. I've also got a glide control on it so that it can bend between notes. That's like a typical chiptune thing as well. So like, I should probably take the detune off for that because it's really starting to phase and like notes are disappearing. That's more like it. And I could set one of the octave, the oscillators an octave up too, so. Also, the sequencer can be set to different notes within an octave, so you could actually set it to play arpeggios. Let's try something. So, something that I'm fond of is playing minor arpeggios or minor chords moving in major thirds. Let's see if we can set that up. So. Turn that off so I can get the. Okay, so we need that note from the third sequence. Cool, now we've got it. So that's like a minor arpeggio that is moving through root, minor third, fifth, and then up an octave. So like we can do these kind of things. So like that's pretty cool. Try this out. And also I've got this, the same LFO that is sequence in that sequence is linked to a sort of sample and hold thing that moves the filter, so you can get kind of 303-ish kind of bubbly random square wave filter sounds. So like this kind of thing, if I turn the resonance up and the filter down a little bit, and then bring in this little square wave thing. That's pretty cool. That has a glide effect on it too, so it can really sort of bend between those random filter points. So like turn the resonance up so that it really bubbles. So that's that filter sound. I'll take the sequence off and you can hear the thing bubbling just by itself. It's quite cool by itself. Let's put the detune back on because we're not using that sequencer anymore. So all sorts of really cool possibilities with that. Also with the filter, I have like an LFO that just is a sine wave that I can put into that filter. So if I take the square wave thing off and bring in this LFO, you can hear that moving really slowly through a sweep. That gets interesting when you take the natural envelope off and you do like say fade in stuff, because you will start to hear that more and less at different points. If I turn the speed of the LFO up, then you can hear it's stronger at different points of the envelope filter sweep. So let's make that longer. Let's try this. Now it should have the desired effect. And I thought it'd be cool if I could make that, sine wave speed up and slow down over the course of the envelope. So I can have it speeding up or slowing down over time. Let's try slowing down over time. So it should start really fast and then slow down to quite a slow sweep. Let's try it. Or it could do the opposite, it could start slow and speed up over time. Oh, that's pretty cool. Let's see how it feels with the natural envelope. Loads of fun. Couple of other little things. That's pretty much all it can do so far. It's still a work in progress, but a couple of other things that I thought were pretty interesting. One is you can have vibrato on the actual note itself, which sounds better when you're in higher octaves, obviously. So let's just pitch it up a little bit. And we'll take that low pass sine wave thing off. And that's good for if you take the feedback off of those oscillators and put the glide on, you can get kind of like, especially with a bit of reverb on, you can get kind of theremin sound. So that really needs the resonance off of the filter, otherwise it's going to distort a little bit, as you can hear. It's a lot quieter. And then the last thing that I think is really cool is the filter in this circuit can be modulated by an oscillator. So I've got one extra sine wave oscillator following the pitch of the notes, and that is actually modulating the filter rather than just hearing it on its own. So if I bring a synth sound back in again, like a really harmonically rich synth sound back in, oh, without glide. What this is going to do is it's going to send a sine wave at quite a low octave into the cutoff modulation input of the filter. So it's basically modulating the filter at audio rate. And this is where things get really filthy and harmonically interesting. What I'll do is I'll hold a note and bring that in gradually, and you can hear the difference that it makes. It's like a really electronic saturation kind of sound. And the more extreme the resonance is, the more extreme that gets, because we're modulating a filter. So if I turn the resonance up, it gets really interesting. And the pitch of that is freely movable, like within semitones, so you can get some really interesting harmonic effects if you move that around. Really weird, throaty, aliasing kind of sound. And it can go right down to LFO rate. Whoa. So that pretty much sums up the overview of the €65 Axoloti guitar synth. Obviously, there's a few things to take into consideration if you're going to try this yourself. I completely recommend you do, but it's time-consuming stuff. I've been playing with this system for like 3 or 4 years now, so I really understand most of what I'm doing when I build things. But there's a long learning curve, so that's something to really take into consideration. You have to be a bit of a nerd to really get the most out of this. Other things to take into consideration when looking at the value and the quality of this synth. One thing is I'm using virtual amps. The other factors are things like the little preamp that I'm using cost about £10. So it's not the greatest quality. The electricity in China where I am is really inconsistent, so there's all sorts of spikes coming into the Axoloti and throwing off the pitch tracking. The guitar itself is a semi-acoustic guitar, so there's all sorts of like harmonic resonances and stuff like that are happening especially when I'm playing higher notes and open notes. So with a Strat or something like that, it would track a lot better. The other thing is the cost of it isn't just €65. If you think about it, you need a laptop, and it only really gets fun if you've got something to change and manipulate different factors of the sound with. So this cost at least twice as much as the Axoloti itself, but if you're a music nerd, you've probably got things with MIDI controls lying about that you can plug in and get some instant gratification. Thoroughly recommend it. One last thing is on the board here, we've got axoloti.com where you can find the system that I've got, but recently someone has actually brought out an updated version of the Axoloti. So it runs the same software, pretty much uses all the same objects, but it claims to be 4 times as powerful. I'm going to get one myself. I think it's $85 or $89 that's shipping at just now. The first batch is just shipped, so there aren't any real reviews or anything like that. The forum's looking pretty empty, but it looks great, and it has like a few extra audio inputs and outputs and stuff like that, which is really appealing to me because I can run things in an effects loop. So I would check out that too if you're interested. It looks really good. Looks like it's more powerful. It looks like the next step in the evolution of this stuff. So yeah, that is the €65 guitar synth. I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. If you did, hit the like button down below. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.